In this conversation, I'm speaking with Tiffany Justice. Tiffany Justice is the co-founder of Moms for Liberty. And just a brief summary, Moms for Liberty is an activist organization that stands up for parental rights and education. And some might even argue that those two things are the most fundamental aspects of a flourishing society. And in this interview, she really opened up and talked about the sexualization of children. Who should be held accountable? What is the solution? Is it just a one-man solution now that Trump has gotten into office? Or is this something that is a long-term plan? How can we fix this long-term? And Tiffany is somebody that I believe that we could all learn from, because she runs this massive organization with over 300 chapters across the whole country. She served on the school board, and so much more that you'll learn in this interview. And at the end, I ask her a tough question and I say, Tiffany, paint me a scenario. If everything goes wrong, if we lose the ability to educate our children, if this indoctrination continues on, what will happen? And her answer will completely shock you. So I suggest that you make it to the end to see what she says. But as always, thank you for clicking on another video. And here is my conversation with Tiffany Justice. Do you believe that the idea of a nucleus family where the children fear, respect, and obey their parents is currently under attack or
Yes.
broken?
Yes. Family is under attack in America.
Like I said, besides off the interview, that I think, for the majority of the people are a little bit more optimistic now that Trump has gotten into power. But what do you see going on now in the future of education? Do you think the fight is now over where, yeah, you know what, we don't have to worry about these things too much. Trump is going to fix it. Like, where do you see the future of this going?
Yeah. So the locus of control is at the most local level when it comes to education. That's the most important part. Local control, our school boards. America is very unique. I think Canada also has a similar system of elected representatives that represent constituents on their school board. And so a lot of important decisions are made at that local level about what curriculum will be used, for example, how your teachers will be compensated, what kinds of priorities you're going to have in your district, and if you're going to allow a lot of this woke ideology to come into your school system. And so the fight isn't far from over. In fact, I think if President Trump does and Secretary McMahon do what it is that they're going to set out to do to dismantle the Department of Education, what you'll see is more control and more autonomy coming down into the states, as it should be. Now, for those people that live in what they would call a blue state, where they really feel that they don't have the representation that they want or need at the local level or at the state level, this does present a challenge to them. But the truth is that the change that you need to make in education is going to always happen at the most local level. And the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. You have to get involved and stay involved.
I like that one. I haven't heard that one before. Additionally to that, there's something that you spoke a lot about in other interviews, which are the teacher unions, and that has a large influence as to what is being taught. Are they responsible for the things that you see, the sexualization of children, of the ideologies that are being pushed? Are they the main ones to blame?
Yeah, well, first I want to be clear and say that union bosses lead to learning losses. This isn't about the teachers, but this is about the teachers' unions and the teachers' union bosses using the unions as the foot soldiers of the progressive far left. And so, yes, absolutely, teachers' union bosses have allowed private organizations, nonprofits, entrance into our children's lives. And since the creation of the Department of Education, when that really did allow for the teachers' unions to have much more influence and control over what happens. We all saw during COVID, Randy Weingarten so cozy with Joe Biden, Randy Weingarten and Rochelle Walensky, who is the head of the CDC, having all kinds of talks where the teachers' union was influencing school reopenings. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. And to be clear, also something that we don't talk a lot about, but it is important, is to understand the global influence of what's happening in American education, and to understand the role that the teachers' unions play in helping to allow that influence to infiltrate across the country.
So then what is their agenda, do you believe?
The teachers' unions agenda?
Yes.
To make money.
Because
And,
mostly
and,
what
and to undermine and to do the bidding again of the progressive far left. They want to teach our children about gender ideology. They've been very clear about that. They want kids to be taught that they could be a boy or a girl or a boy and a girl, or maybe not a boy or a girl. Maybe there's something else altogether. And the teachers unions push that. And they allow for other organizations to come into our schools and to get involved in our student services departments and in the procedure when it comes to students across the country. And so they do want to destabilize America to transform it into a different vision, a communist, socialist utopia that they believe will solve all of the problems. We know that's a lie. Communism has killed over 100 million people in the past 100 years. It always fails. It is absolutely impossible to attain. And so, the teachers' unions are behind that move. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the vast majority of teachers in our schools are not interested in raising other people's kids. I think they want to go in and teach and live their lives. I don't think that they want to teach our kids a lot of this sick critical theory, but it's becoming more and more a part of their everyday life.
Interesting, because most I was having a conversation with my mom because I told her I was interviewing you, and we're sitting at the dinner table, and I was like, "Let me ask you, Mom, have you ever gone to a board meeting? Do you even know what a teacher union is, Randy?" "No, never heard about it." And it's almost as if there's a disinterest in for parents. At least I'm not going to speak for broad, but I've asked multiple of my friends' parents before this interview, and all of them said no. In a weird way, because you know you would assume that teachers and teaching and the education system is supposed to be nonpartisan, and it's not supposed to push any ideology. It's supposed to be in the best benefit of the children and to educate the children. you know why do you think that's the reason why it got shifted? Is it just because they want to push forward their own personal agendas, either each teacher, or is there like a bigger play with that?
I think that are some activist teachers. We did CBS Sunday Morning, and I remember there was a teacher who was interviewed in that piece, and she had a T-shirt on that said "Educating is activism." And so I do think you have a subset of teachers who have gone through the teachers' colleges in America and are being radicalized, and do believe that they're going to use the schools to transform the country, to change the relationship between the parent and the child, which is necessary in order to indoctrinate the child into other things that are antithetical to the teaching in the home. So I do think that is happening. Parents in general are not aware of the teachers union's influence. The teachers union kind of works under the radar. They're very involved in school board races. They put a lot of money behind school board races, and they bring a lot of other people in to the school board races and give them information on the ground about who's running and who to support and how much money they need and all of that jazz. They've been doing that for a long time. But teachers in my own school district, when I was on school board, I remember going into my son's first grade classroom and talking to the teacher, who was a friend of mine who had three of my other kids. And I said to her, the teachers, they're doing bargaining this afternoon. Do you know what they're asking for? Like, we've been trying to get rid of this early release day. It was a once a month day on a Wednesday where all the kids would get out early. And it was really disruptive. It was disruptive for the students. It was disruptive for the parents. A lot of the teachers said that the professional development that was provided to them on those days was not meaningful, and they would rather have the students in the classroom. And yet the teachers union didn't want to give it up because it was a bargaining chip, and they knew we wanted to get rid of it. They knew especially that I wanted to get rid of it. And so, when I asked my friend, and she was like, no, I just stay out of that. I just, I pay my dues and I stay out of that. And so I just think it's important for teachers to understand that they don't need to be a member of the union, that there are other groups. Freedom Foundation is one of those groups. If there's a teacher watching that wants to learn more about how to leave the union, but it is possible. And we need more teachers to leave the union and stop being a proxy. They don't know what's really happening at the leadership level. And my experience is largely that the teachers union bosses, they bargain for the people at the table, not the people in the classroom, because you normally have senior leadership on teachers unions bargaining panels or committees, and bargaining for the union, and they oftentimes haven't been in the classroom for some time, or are much more senior. So they're not looking at that first year teacher retention. They're not looking at a lot of the different issues that the district and the parents should be concerned about.
All right, so how would you keep these leaders that are in the union accountable? Because the goal is, and I've heard you say it in multiple different interviews, is to replace the union and to stop them from what they're doing. But they're also a massive organization, so it's hard to just stop them. But Do you think accountability could be part
There's
of the
no
equation?
accountability. There's nothing that we need to hold them accountable for. They do not help children. I said union bosses lead to learning losses. When unions get involved, the money is spent in ways that doesn't prioritize the needs of children. It prioritizes the wants of adults. So I'm not really interested in entertaining or I mean, I love teachers. I want to make sure that teachers are getting what they need in schools, and I want to make sure that every dollar that they're making is going into their pocketbook. And what we saw in Florida was when we started, we had a law that said that a union would be decertified if 60% of their membership, wasn't a paying dues member that was voting. And we've seen. That the teachers unions in Florida have decreased, that people are not. We also passed a law that said that the district no longer removes the union dues, and gives them to the union. They used to provide that administrative function. And now teachers actually have to write their own check if they want to be a member of the union from their paycheck. And that was an important step too, because it's, when you're having trouble buying groceries, maybe you think twice before you write the check to the teachers union, and you ask yourself, what am I paying these dues for? And I think a lot of teachers are asking themselves that question. The teachers unions, Randy Weingarten, when she was interviewed, when she testified before Congress, she
Mm-hmm.
said, what we need to do is we need to, she was talking about learning loss. She was there to talk about COVID. And we have data that now shows, our children the education plummeted. Achievement plummeted. So it would be nice if we had some accountability for that time in our lives where we put children on the back burner of society and said that they didn't really matter that much. And they felt it. But when she was interviewed, she said, what we need to do is take care of the whole child. Randy Weingarten and others want something called community schools. Community schools become the social welfare hub of the community. They want all of the medical services for the child, mental health services in the community coming out of the schools. They want entrance to the schools to be able to reach the children with these public-private partnerships. And there are a number of reasons why Randy wants that, but primarily it's money. They want school-based health clinics. If you know, the AFT is not just a teachers union. They are an AFL-CIO organization. They have healthcare workers as well. And so it's just expanding the footprint of the teachers unions into the schools across America. And so community schools are bad. They equal communism. We will stop them from expanding. I believe that with President Trump's new cabinet, he has some very strong people who are going to be able to help us to stop the spread of community schools.
What does that look like for the next 4 years?
Well, it looks like the head of the HHS, Bobby Kennedy, Dave Weldon, who's over at the CDC, and others not allowing funding, cutting off the funding ties and the grants that are being given for these community schools.
What do you say to the people that fear that, they understand where you're coming from, they see it 100%, they're all for it, but then they say, okay, then what is a long-term solution when another administration comes in after, and then the cycle kind of begins again?
Yeah, well, if they dismantle the Department of Education, move things around, kind of change what the footprint is, block grant the money down into the states so they don't need the administration at the federal level to work through that grant system, or to work and deliver those funds. The funds can go directly to the states. It looks like less work and less people making money in the middle, and keeping states out of education. States need to be in charge of education, and parents ultimately need to be in charge of education. But the federal government has been usurping the role of the state for some time. I tell people they should be really excited that our government's gotten so big and so bloated that they should be happy that people like Alon and Vivek and Bobby, as I said, and Jay Bhattacharya at NIH. Let's talk about that for a second. Millions of dollars going to funding a doctor in California who is experimenting on children using puberty blockers at the age of 8.
That was in California.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a woman named Johanna Olson Kennedy, a doctor there. She calls herself a gender doctor. I call her a mad scientist. And Mengele style experiments on children where they're being put on puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, given life-altering gender mutilation surgery, sexual mutilation surgery. And it's really awful. But hopefully we're going to put an end to a lot of that stuff, a lot of that waste, and we're going to start prioritizing the American people again.
And I believe it all starts. And what I was seeing, I'm still young. This is my first time voting in an election. First time I've been able to vote. And I'm seeing where the attack is started is in the household. Because if
Mhm.
you could divide the household, then what else is there? Even in the Bible, it talks about how sacred the household is, how sacred that parent to child, relationship is. That as children, you should obey your parents, you should respect
Right.
them, you should be wise enough to listen to their counsel. And I've heard you talk about it in a lot of different interviews that it all starts as soon as you separate this, as soon as you start giving a child that is 13, 14, 15, 16, 12, 10, the rights to make decisions as if they have a clear enough understanding, if that they have a fully developed brain, rather than handing it to the parents.
Yeah, I just don't think kids can consent to a lot of the different things that they're going along with. They're seeing stuff on social media about this idea of trans ideology. They're going into schools, and you have schools that are keeping secrets from parents. So you have schools
Wow.
that are having kids fill out 6 pages of forms saying, "What name would you like to be called at school? What name would you like us to use with your parents? What bathroom would you like to use at school? When you go on overnight field trips, would you like to sleep with the boys or the girls?" So you have
Wow.
this social transition that's happening in the schools. And I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, what's the big deal? It's just a name. What's the big deal? You're just being nice. You're just making the child feel accepted." Well, social transition is it sets children on a pipeline to medical transition. There is a school to clinic pipeline. I tell a story, Jacob. When I was 12 years old, I remember I wanted to be a vegetarian. And I told everybody that I was going to be a vegetarian. I remember I told my friends, I told my teachers, obviously my parents knew I was a vegetarian. And I think it lasted, gosh, I want to say it lasted probably about 6 months or so. But
That's a
I
long time,
remember,
actually. I thought you were
yeah,
going to say
I
less.
did okay, but I missed, I'm sure I missed eating a hamburger. And so I remember that it was really hard to like come out and tell people I wasn't a vegetarian anymore, like, to be in the lunch line. And, I had kind of made a big deal out of the fact I wasn't going to eat meat anymore. And so, I joke and when I tell this story and laugh a little bit, but I think it's important for us to remember that, there's a lot of peer pressure in high school.
Yeah.
And so if you're a girl and you're 11 years old and all of a sudden you start going through puberty, which isn't fun. No girls like it. No, it's hard on kids in general, but it's hard for girls. You don't, and then we have a society that kind of wants to make girls think that they should be beautiful and sexy and all of those things at really young ages when they shouldn't. They should just focus on being a kid, right?
Yeah.
But if you are a girl at 11 and you decide you're going to tell everyone that you think you were born in the wrong body and that you've always known this, right? Because that's what they have to say. That they suffer from gender dysphoria, that and that this is that you were born in the wrong body and now you're going to live as a boy. Let's just stop for a second and I'll ask you the question. If you're in school and you do that, how hard is it going to be for you to go back and say, "Oops, I changed my mind. Maybe I was wrong," if you start living as a boy in school?
And I think that's where I hear these stories, which I want to ask you in the question now, that you hear these stories of all these people that regret making a decision like that, because you also have to understand it's a much different decision of just saying you want to do something, or yeah, hey, I think about being a girl, or I think about, yeah, but you when you actually make the transition, it's like that's a permanent change. And it's the same way that you can't get a tattoo, I think, until you're 16. You need your parents' signature, and 18 you could do it. But there's reasons for those laws and those age limits, especially alcohol, smoking. Like, there's reasons for that. And yet it's a little bit hypocritical as I hear the stories of the reversal being not true.
Yeah, we don't handle any other situation like we do this idea of gender affirming care or gender dysphoria, or so, I'm going to say it's rapid onset gender dysphoria. So, it's not like, kids are 5 years old and they're saying, I feel like I was a boy or a girl. There are those instances. And I think, in general for men, especially, that the majority of men who experience gender dysphoria at young ages turned out to be gay men. They went through puberty and puberty corrected some of those thoughts that they had about whether or not they were meant to be a woman or a man, right? They felt more feminine or in some ways, or effeminate, and they got to live healthy lives. I think the important thing to remember here is puberty blockers uh, are not reversible. You can't just flip on a switch and stop and start puberty. And it's not just your secondary sex characteristics, breasts or, pubic hair, whatever it is. It's not the only thing that develops during that time. There are a million different things that are happening in the development of a child, their brain, their prefrontal cortex, and the development that's happening in their brain, their bone density, what's happening, and so there are a lot of other things that affect their kidneys and so anyway, there are a lot of other things.
Developing, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
there are
still
a
developing, yes.
million other things that are happening when you go through puberty as a kid. And the idea that somehow you can delay puberty and it won't affect the child and then give them cross sex hormones, effectively sterilizing them. Because when girls go on cross sex hormones and take testosterone, there are all kinds of negative effects to their reproductive system. And My goodness, it is criminal, Jacob, what's happening. It really is. And here's the important thing to know. You said the thing about the tattoo and the parent can give consent. In this situation, we do not believe that the parent should be able to give consent. If my son thought he was a pirate and I brought him into the doctor and I said, "Hey, doctor, can you cut off my son's leg and put a peg leg on and poke out his eye and put an eye patch because he's a pirate and he wants to live life as a pirate?" I would probably go to jail for child abuse if that happened and I directed it. And that doctor would lose their medical license and probably go to jail for doing that to the child. So in this situation, it's just crazy. And then the last thing I'll say is, you know, these gender ideologues are stealing a future from girls, and it's primarily girls that it's happening with right now. But there are boys too they're stealing a future from these kids that they don't even know that they want. When I was 12, I didn't know I wanted 4 kids. I don't know if I wanted to be a mom. I had little siblings and, I thought they were a pain in the neck. So I don't know if I thought, gosh, I want to have all these kids. I'm going to meet someone someday and have a family. So the majority of young people that are making these types of decisions, we say, they can't consent because they can't possibly fathom what the ramifications are going to be.
Exactly.
Limited life expectancy, as I said, becoming sterilized. And, we just want parents to have accurate information so they can best make the best choices for their kids. But we don't believe that gender affirming care in any shape, way, or form should be okay. Even if a parent says it's okay, it's child abuse and it should be treated as such.
Yeah, and me as a teenager still, I 100% believe that that is something that it shouldn't even be, I agree with you. It shouldn't even be something that's accountable. Okay, well, let's see the situations where this may work. No, you say how it is. It's nonsense. And I think being optimistic about the future in 5 years, we're definitely going to say,
I hope.
2020 to 2025 was a weird time. Like, why was this normalized? Why? But, you
Yeah.
know, for the parents that, are watching, I'm definitely going to send this to my mom and dad. I live in Florida. Florida, we have Ron Santos. We have the, Miami-Dade counties, for the most part, red. You don't see too much of this. You hear it mostly in California. You hear a lot of stories of this. You hear a lot of stories maybe in New York, different stories. But for the people that are saying, well, Tiffany, I don't see that. I don't feel it. It's not in the education system. Like, why should I care?
Well, I mean, you may not be feeling it yet, but I'll tell you. I mean, I travel around the country. It seems like everyone is becoming affected by gender ideology or critical theory in some way, shape, or form. Elon called it the woke mind virus, and I think it has infected so many people. It happens in Florida. Education is a captured institution, so you can have a red governor, you can have a red legislature, but the truth is that education is captured. It continues to be captured across the country, and so we've got a lot of work to do to turn that around.
And then what is the fight on the parent side? Because going back to who's accountable, and you said it's a teachers union, the Department of Education. For a parent that they have the busy job, they could barely you pick up the kid. Maybe they have to get a nanny. Maybe they have to take time off. They have to call off early just to pick up. They barely have this much time to go to this board meeting and this. But what does that look like? Is it just going to board meetings locally? Is it?
It's hard, and being a parent in general is hard, and I think technology and social media has made it even harder. Parents are working a lot, and the economy has forced a lot of people that were staying home or, that were trying to homeschool or different things, has forced them back into the job market because eggs are $8 a carton. So, I think that I'm hopeful that we're going to see parents and our economy improve, and then parents be able to be prioritize having someone home with their kids, because ideally you're going to have a parent that's with your kids. If you want to homeschool, that's great. Not everyone can, but certainly to be involved in their education. The number one driver of student success is parental involvement. There is nothing that the school system can possibly do to make up for that. And so that's why it's so concerning, Jacob, when you see the public education system pushing parents out, not welcoming parents in. It makes you have to really step back and think, okay, they know that parents are the number one driver of student success. If they want students to be successful, then why aren't they rolling out the red carpet for parents? Why wouldn't they be involving parents at every turn? And oftentimes what you see when parents get involved is, oh no, so much chaos. I hear this sometimes. Everything was fine until those Moms for Liberty members came in here, and they started asking questions and causing problems. We cause problems. Well, because we're not okay with the status quo. Because the status quo means that only a third of kids are reading on grade level in our public schools, and we reject that. That's not okay. And so I'm so sorry if we're sowing chaos, but the truth is that things need to be disrupted. The system needs to be disrupted because it's not serving the students and the families as it should. So parents need to get involved. They need to ask questions. They need to look at what their children are learning. So much of what the kids are learning now is online. And so it makes it difficult for parents to really be able to see the information that their children are being exposed to. But you're supposed to be able to see what your kids are learning, and you're supposed to be able to do that in advance of them learning it.
So
Parents have
how
Go
do you
ahead.
do that? That's
Yeah,
like
parents
specifically, how would parents know that?
Sure. Parents have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children. That includes your education. You can't direct something if you're reacting to it. And so that's why I say you need to know what your kids are learning. There are instructional review committees that are in your school district that happen, and they're spaced out by different years. You'll adopt math one year, you'll adopt English one year. But that's an opportunity for parents to be able to see the curriculum in advance of the district adopting it. So you can get involved if you care about what's in the history books, what's in the math books, what's in the English curriculum. You can get involved, and then you can be on a committee where you actually get to review that and have a vote and make recommendations to the school board. So that's really important. You can also pay a lot of attention to what's happening at the state level when they're doing a curriculum adoption. On a day-to-day basis, the most important thing that you need to do is know your kids' teachers. The most important thing, especially when your kids get older, it gets harder. They don't want you as involved with their teachers, I know, and they have lots of teachers at that point. But especially in elementary school, the most important relationship you're going to have is with that teacher in the classroom. Talk to them, go and volunteer. Make sure that they know that you're not comfortable with different subjects being taught to your child, that you do not want gender ideology taught to your child, that you do not want your child seeing any type of a counselor or having any meetings with other adults without you being present. That relationship with your children, and then with your kid's teacher. And then the most important thing is really your relationship with your kids. And if
Yep.
parents can do one thing every day that would make a huge difference, it's family dinner. I think that sitting down together and having a meal, and I know not every family can do it, but if you can, that to me is the most important thing to do, where you get to have that dialogue with your children and talk about what they learned that day, and give them the opportunity to share with you. Because if you're doing your job right as a parent, your kids are going to know when something's happening in school that maybe you wouldn't like, right? And you want them to tell you that.
What an underrated message. Just, you know, and I think about it too, because now as I'm getting older, I should be spending more time with my parents. Obviously I'm busy, the business, the podcast, and stuff like that. But what an underrated message! Just spend more time at the dinner table, because equally so at the dinner table you start to see what's being taught. You start to see what they're talking about. You start to see where their mind's at, and I just think that's such a powerful message, because obviously we hear these things about, go to a local school board meeting, which is amazing, be involved, maybe be on the committee. And like I said, for some parents that they may genuinely be swamped, they have to take two jobs, three jobs, they're making ends meet, they're taking care of their kids, they're doing this. Like a simple dinner table will allow you to understand what your kid's being taught.
Yeah, and you have to kind of build up their armor a little
Yeah.
bit, and you have to do it in an age appropriate way. Moms for Liberty has some resources and tools on our website for that. But you do unfortunately have to front load your kids with a little bit of information about different things in an age appropriate way so that they know where your family stands on different issues.
Yes.
It's totally appropriate for you to say to your kids, like, mommy and daddy don't want you having meetings with other people at the school. If you're okay with your teacher, you can talk to your teacher in your classroom. But if, an adult ever comes and tries to get you to go talk to them, you just need to say, I really want my mom. I really want you to call my mom. And, I think some of those things seem really simple, but maybe we forget, we all want to trust school, but the truth of the matter is that we need to really get our kids to trust themselves.
And what ends up happening, and I could speak for this firsthand. Like I said, I just graduated high school last year, and I see, you know, how my parents' upbringing, while in the moment it may seem of nagging, in the moment it's like embarrassing, like, mom, can you please like just drop me off here? Please don't go here. Please, please don't talk to my teacher. Please. Like it seems nagging in the moment, but as you grow older, you see the difference. And this is what I will say: the difference between students who had kid or parents that were involved with their curriculum and parents that weren't. And you see the vast difference. You see, the effect as when they get older, what they prioritize. Are they, going to all these parties? Are they smoking all these different things? Are they not involved in anything? They don't understand anything politically. They don't care about these things. You see the difference when parents are involved. And this is coming from firsthand, as I was blessed that my parents were involved in my life. And, you know, I think you definitely see the effect of when your parents are involved. And I think that is the ultimate blockage from what you said, that woke mind virus from getting, you know,
Yeah,
becoming.
and then Jacob, think about it. They're telling kids in school to keep secrets from their parents. They have kids leading a double life where they're saying you can be a boy here and here, put on this chest binder. They give them things to flatten their chest if they're a girl, all kinds of different things that they do. And then the kid goes home and is supposed to not talk to the parents about any of that. I mean, it's really awful. You think about a kindergartner being taught that they might have been born in the wrong body. First of all, that's antithetical to many religions. There are men and there are women. God doesn't make mistakes. And
a
so that's
hundred
very
percent.
concerning for parents, right? To have that happening. But can you think of anything that's more destabilizing than to tell a 5-year-old that everything that they know to be true about who they are might be wrong because their parents could make a mistake about it?
Yeah, no, no,
These are kids who believe in Santa or the tooth fairy. They're children. Their
exactly.
minds work like children. They're not just mini adults. And so it's really such a huge violation of parental rights. What's happening in our schools is a violation of our First Amendment rights, of our 14th Amendment rights. And we're done with it. We're done with the government interfering in our lives. We do not co-parent with the government. And in Moms for Liberty, we've been really involved in the court system, bringing cases where our rights are being violated. And we've been very successful in some of those cases, including a Title IX case out of the 10th Circuit, where we're waiting for a ruling out of that court to hopefully vacate the Biden administration Title IX regulations completely. That means that they won't be able to go into effect anywhere in the country. Currently, right now, we have a preliminary injunction where any member of a Moms for Liberty's kid goes to school. I always mess up saying that. My goodness. Anywhere that a Moms for Liberty member's child attends school, that school cannot enforce the new regulations under Title IX, according to the Biden admin. So that means no boys and girls bathrooms or locker rooms, no boys and girls sports teams, due process in schools. Yep. So it's important.
Wow, that's really cool. Actually, yeah, I'm definitely gonna read up more about that. I didn't see that, but that's really cool. So, what is the, you know, going back to what I said, that you don't want this to be a tug and going back and forth. Like we want this to be in the past. You know, what more could parents do? Like if they see, once they start to see, oh, I didn't know that school's teaching you this. Man,
They
but
can
we don't
run
have.
for school board, Jacob. Parents need to run for school board. And it's the and I don't care what they do for a living. You be a doctor, a lawyer, work at a fast food. You have to run for school board. We need good people in America to run and serve on school board. It just has to be a part of our lives, the fabric of our lives. I think there are a lot of people that thought, this is something that somebody else does: run for office, run for political office. School board doesn't need to be a launching place for a career in politics. Unfortunately, I think it's been treated like that for a long time, but it doesn't need to be like that. It can be concerned community members who have children in the public schools or have friends who have children stepping up and serving on those school boards, and then finding someone else to run when they're done serving, right? So they serve for a few years, a few terms, and then they go and they find someone else to run, and that has the values. They build those relationships in the community to have a pipeline of people that are running and serving on school board, because you really can change the trajectory of your entire community by getting school board right, by getting education right in your community. Your whole community will thrive and benefit. The businesses will thrive and benefit. The children will thrive. You'll see that your crime rate goes down when you have better literacy scores, and kids are doing better in school. And so it really does affect the whole community and your economy if you have a well-functioning school district. So,
What are the responsibilities or the direct role of a school board? Like, what decisions do they have? Yes
sure.
and no.
Yeah, they make policy decisions. So they hire the superintendent and the general counsel collectively as a board. And then they make policy decisions where they direct the superintendent to do things. The superintendent will then will
Uh,
create the procedure around the policy recommendation or the policy decisions of the school board. But they make policy decisions. They, make decisions on funding as well. On what to fund, what not to fund, how it will be funded. They make decisions about the capital outlay in the school district, safety and security, those types of things.
so pretty much everything. Yeah. So they have their
Yeah,
own.
they're
Okay.
very important. They really are. And, it's not meant to be an adversarial situation or relationship with your superintendent and school district. But you certainly shouldn't just be a rubber stamp. You should be someone who is a watchdog, who is paying attention, who does look to build a good relationship with the teachers' unions, but understanding that somebody's got to bargain for the parents and the kids. The school system
Yes.
is meant to function to educate children. It's not a jobs program. And unfortunately, it's become a jobs program in many places around the country, and that has to stop.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked that is because maybe sometime next week or maybe next month, I'm interviewing the superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools because
Good.
I want to see, like, where he stands. I want to
Yep.
see, ask a superintendent, and I wanted to ask you, like, what was the role exactly of a superintendent? Because it's almost as if there's friction to know who's on the school board. Like, I don't know why, but superintendents are easy to find. But if I search up anything, the board, the committee, it's really hard to find. And I literally could not find it if I went online.
Yeah, so you had an interesting superintendent in Miami-Dade. His name was Alberto Carvalho. He's now in Los Angeles Unified School District, but Alberto is a politician.
Yes.
He was popular. He would say that he created school choice in Miami. I think it's a bit of a mirage
Mhm.
of school choice, in my opinion. But he would say that he has a majority of kids that are choosing where they're going to school. He did a lot of reform work in Miami-Dade. I'm curious to see how your interview with your
I'll send it
superintendent
to you. I'll
goes.
send it to
Yeah.
you
So
because
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that your school board's going to set the priorities for the superintendent. It
Okay.
shouldn't be an adversarial situation. Superintendent job is a hard job. You are the
Yeah.
CEO of the school district. You oftentimes you need to be an educational leader as well. And so it is a hard job. It is not easy. And what I'd like to see superintendents doing is putting a focus on reading, writing, math, science, history, back to the basics when it comes to school, and stop with all the woke nonsense, and stop with like Alberto has done in Los Angeles, bringing washers and dryers into schools. He has kids doing laundry. There's laundry being done in
Mhm.
schools. And there was some baloney article written in Business Insider, which is pay to play, so we can take that for what it is, saying that, oh, the washers and dryers in the schools help to cut down on absenteeism because the kids had clean clothes. Now, let's be clear. I want children to have clean clothes. I absolutely do. However, I don't think school is the place where the laundry should be happening. We task our teachers with so much, in taking care of kids in the classroom, not just educating them now, but now mental health support, all of these things. The idea that somehow we're doing kids' laundry at school is just ridiculous, and needs to stop. So I'm interested to see and hear your superintendent and your interview. Please send that to me.
Yes, I will send that to you. And another thing that I felt was important. And by the way, I don't know how that's gonna go. Like, and I always take the approach of, and I'm learning. because obviously if I'm interviewing political and religious leaders, that's a very emotional, there's people that like, don't like there's, I understand that there's both sides of it. And I'm just taking the approach of being somebody that's curious, a student, in college, I have this, I don't know it all, and I don't expect to know it all for the next couple of years, but I'm just curious and I want to ask questions. I want to see, where the leaders that govern, you know, a lot of our everyday living, how they are thinking.
Yeah.
But, you know, what do you think the future of education looks like?
Hopefully with parents in the driver's seat with every major decision that happens with their child. We have educational savings accounts, universal ESAs now in Florida, where parents are really able to choose where they want to send their children to school. And we'd like to see that across the country. I believe that parents, again, have the fundamental right to direct the education of their children, and no child should be trapped in a failing school. No parent should have to make the choice every day that they have to send their child to a school that they know is not going to give them the skills and tools needed to be successful in life. And so school choice is honestly very, very important. I want to see good school choice policy happening at the state level. You want to make sure that it's protecting our freedom and rights and liberties, and make sure that it's protecting homeschool families from additional government overreach or interference. That's something that I know homeschool families are always really, really concerned about. And I'm sensitive to that because they're kind of the canaries in the coal mine when it comes to a lot of the woke ideology in the schools and the concerns. So yeah, parents in the driver's seat, really, the government needs to get out of the way as much as possible when it comes to kids and educating children.
Paint the picture, for those people that are listening and saying, well, Tiffany, you're just an extremist. How could you say this? This is never going to happen. This, you don't have faith in our future. You're not optimistic about the future. Well, how could you
I'm
paint the
optimistic about
picture?
the future. I'm scared right now for the kids across the country that aren't learning how to read. Let's just revisit this for a second, Jacob. I told you only a third of kids are reading on grade level in fourth grade. Let's break it down in demographics. You have a little over 40% of white students, but only 21% of Hispanic students and only 17% of Black students reading on grade level. When you go into urban areas, it's even worse. That is a dismal future for these kids. 80% of the kids that are in the juvenile justice system across the United States of America, kids who get in trouble, right, with the courts, who get, break the law, commit crimes, what have you, 80% of those kids are functionally illiterate. When you look at our prison system, men read on average at a first grade level, women on an average at a third grade level. But recidivism drops in our prisons by 80% when people learn how to read in prison. Reading is a key to the future of success for people in their lives in America. And we have the vast majority of kids not learning how to read. And when they can't read, again, a life of struggle and crime awaits them. Why would we relegate these children to that type of a fate? It's absolutely unacceptable. 95% of children have the ability to learn to read by third grade. All children have the ability to read by third grade. And so if we did nothing else in our public schools, certainly in our elementary schools, we should be teaching kids how to read. It's the most
So
important thing we can do.
on the flip, what would be, if everything goes wrong, God willing, and like I said, I'm an optimist too. I believe the future is inevitably going to be brighter than what it was, the last 4 years and the last 4 years. But paint me the picture, worst case scenario, what this looks like if stuff keeps on getting worse.
Yeah, if we don't reclaim and reform our public education system, we'll lose our country. We will. I mean, we'll fix the economy and inflation and immigration and all of those things. I believe that. But if we don't seriously reclaim and reform our public education system, we will lose America. Our children are, again, not being given practicable skills so they can make decisions on their own. That's very concerning, to have a nation of sheep, of people who have to just take the government's word for everything rather than being able to discern for themselves. But the wedge that's being driven between the parent and the child, and the way that the schools are being used in this, I mean, we're in the middle of a cultural revolution in America, and the schools are a major battlefield where we are currently fighting, and we are not winning right now, to be clear. We are just getting up to speed. We are just getting in the game. The teachers unions and others have been running the board when it comes to school board and education for a very long time. And so we have to get in there. We have to make the changes that we need to at the federal level. We need to be, again, vigilant at the local level, get involved in school board races. We need funders to get involved and to help to fund campaigns for school board races around the country. and just help people to understand that, our children are the future, and we need to invest in them if we want to have a bright future in America.
100%. And I believe that that should be the goal of, every generation. As I get older, I want to make the generation under me, stronger, but also a wise man learns from others' mistakes. They don't have to make the same mistakes I did. They don't have to. And, you know, anybody who disagrees with what you just said, I believe they're not acting in the best interest of America. And it's more so them sticking to a political party, whatever side you're on, because at the end of the day, we're talking about, children and the future of America, because they are. It's not a party that's the future of America. It's the people that live inside of the country that are the future of America. So,
That's right.
you know, like I said, I definitely believe that the future is inevitably bright and it will be amazing. And I'm so excited for the next 4 years. But I also want to emphasize, to the people that are watching, to not think that it's all done now,
Right.
like you said, because a lot of the stuff and a lot of the people that I've been interviewing, I don't know if you know who Billy Corbin is.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, he controversial, but what he was saying and the message that I really like that he said is that you know most people look to the national level and say, well, they place more emphasis on this, but don't understand that that might take a couple months, maybe even a couple years for you to really feel that. But local, you'll feel that right away. If they make any
True.
policy, if they make any change, you'll feel that right away. And the best message that someone can preach, regardless of what political side you are on, is be more involved locally
Yeah.
in every aspect. So
Absolutely, and it's what the unions are going to do now. You have to look. The left is really licking their wounds right now, after losing the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and so they're going to put a lot of focus at the local level. And let's be clear about that: the local level is very, very important. I said before, the teachers' unions are the foot soldiers of the progressive far left. They didn't perform as well as they have in the past. I think they had made a lot of mistakes, honestly, including having a horrible candidate that they were running for president. But that apparatus, that machine that they have, being able to connect with voters, the grassroots, on the ground, mobilize people, is huge. And they're not stopping. They're not giving up. They're not going away. President Trump winning was the first step. It was a huge win in the war, but the war is not over for the future of our country. And so we just need to continue to help people to understand that every single person in the United States of America has a role to play. So you got to get off the comfy couch. It's not enough to just vote every 2 years. We need to make sure that we're staying constantly involved and connected, and that we're, making sure that the decisions that we want made at the local level reflect our community's values.
I agree with you on that, and I hope most people watching this do agree. If you guys don't agree, comment down below. Let's see. I definitely, side note, we don't have to get too deep into this because I know your time is limited. That I also believe that making debate, not personal, and making debate something where it's normalized is also something of the most importance. I know somebody that you talked about, James Fishback. I interviewed him 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and that's his main thing, like keeping debate, alive, and keeping it nonpartisan, and keeping it where it's just an open debate. And I believe that's another thing of the utmost importance. But I want to ask you, do you still have your merch available? Is there still Moms for Liberty
Yeah, you
merch?
can go to momsforliberty.org. We have great merch there. We made, I told you that we don't co-parent with the government. We made those t-shirts our first year. We still have those for sale. That's how
Yes.
we fund. Yeah, it's in part how we funded Moms for Liberty from the start. And so, yeah, go to the website.
Yes.
Great merchandise there. If you live somewhere else and you're looking at, in Florida, we have a number of different chapters, but across the country, we continue to grow and expand. And, if you're interested in starting a chapter, click to start one, and you can start that process of bringing 10 like-minded people together. It doesn't take your whole community. It just takes a group of dedicated people to sound the alarm and hold the torch of liberty.
Yes, and I challenge you guys. I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna buy some shirts. The reason why I asked you is because I was on the homepage and I couldn't find it, like on the top, like where it said merch.
It should say
So that's
shop. There should be a shop there. You should
okay.
have. You
Because
should be able to shop somewhere. I'll look for you, and I'll send you the.
okay. I see it. I see it. I see it. I see it.
Okay.
Because I wanted to link the proper link for
Thank
the
you.
people. Because I myself, I'm gonna order 4 for my family. I am
Aw,
for
thank
your
you.
girlfriend.
That's very nice.
Yes, to support. I'll send you pictures. But
Good, please do. Good hats too. We've got some great
yes,
hats.
yes, big hat person. I'm definitely gonna check it out.
There you go.
And I implore you guys that are watching, if you guys want to support the movement, if you guys like what you heard, if you guys believe, in what she said, and it's not about her message, it's the message of America. That's what I believe. So if you believe that, and you believe that the future is bright, you believe that the future is gonna be inevitably better than what it was, support, please. Like you said, I think organizations like yourself don't get enough credit and don't get enough support. So I'm gonna do my best to support. I'll keep supporting you guys. Everything's gonna be the link in the description, your Twitter, and Moms for Liberty, everything down below. Seriously, thank you again for taking the time. I
Oh,
enjoyed our
thank you.
conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being
Yes.
so passionate about these issues. It gives me a lot of hope that a lot of young people are getting involved and invested in politics, that they're being open-minded about who they're going to support. And, President Trump got a lot of support from young voters. And so I do all the interviews with high school, college kids at Moms for Liberty. And I'm always so happy to do them because you guys give me a lot of hope for the future.
Yes, I hope that we continue to do so. I hope that that doesn't stop. But like I said, thank you again. If you guys didn't make it to the end, check out all the links in the description, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you on the next one.